Here we are. This is episode, however many I've done so far of the Uncivilized Art podcast, and I have my man Straight Up Hippo with me. Yo, appreciate you coming through, brother. How you doing?
Wagwan. Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Wagwan. Oh yeah, let me do it properly. Wagwan, my
Yeah.
you. Wagwan, my
Yeah, we're
G.
here. Yeah.
But no, I'm well, man. Appreciate you coming through, man. I remember like watching some of your videos from like years ago. In fact, I feel like I remember seeing one of your videos. It's probably close to 10 years ago now, where you
No,
said
you're
something along
joking.
the lines of, "I'm really glad I kept my I think it was like a not a graphics card. Let's call it like a what do you call those things that you plug to the computer records the um games
Capture card?
with capture card." Yeah, you
Capture
said
card.
like, "I'm
Yeah,
really
yeah.
glad I kept my capture card," and I guess, I guess the
10 years
capture card
ago.
really worked out, huh?
What year are we in now? 2022. So that's
Mm.
2012. So yeah, you could probably potentially. I think I started my channel in 2012. So that's a long ass time ago
Yeah.
now. Like I was still in school.
Wow,
Like I
from
was in like
school to
year nine,
now.
I think. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
All right, so real quick then, for anybody who might not know, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is ya? What is you doing? What is you about? That kind of thing.
So yeah, I've been on the block for a little bit. I've been making YouTube videos since 2009 on different channels, but then this one, as I just mentioned, like since like 2012. Primarily cover like automotive, gaming. I've had pretty close relations to the Need for Speed series in the past, and
Mm.
Forza and Gran Turismo. Funnily enough, my stickers are actually in Need for Speed if you go into the livery editor and stuff. So I've actually been really blessed, to be honest, with my YouTube channel and some of the opportunities I've been given. And yeah, mainly automotive gaming. On the side, I do a bit of DJing. I also work full time in the music industry. So yeah, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, I think.
You know what? I saw something a little while ago. Apparently, the full phrase is "Jack of all trades, master of none," but a master of none is better than I can't remember exactly how it goes, but there's a full phrase to it where it just makes it sound a whole lot better. Like master of something is a better than a master of Anyway,
Nothing, nothing.
it's
Yeah, I
supposed to
need to
make it
find the
sound a
rest of
better.
I need to find the rest of that quote because
Yeah.
that'll like make me look sick.
All right, so yeah, so you mentioned like Need for Speed, and I remember watching some of your old school videos where you covered a lot of Need for Speed. I mean, and I know some of your more recent videos you cover like actual cars. So for yourself, was you always like did the love of cars come first? Was the love of racing games come first? They just come at the same time, or how did that kind of journey start?
uh, Probably the same time, I reckon. Like some of my earliest memories of cars. So, to give you a bit of backstory, like I've always grown up around cars. So, like my
Mm,
dad has always had cars in the house. Like didn't matter what like house we were in, we always had nice cars outside. Like even if the areas weren't that great, like if we were that house. So I've always been surrounded in it. Not just my dad, but my whole family are into cars. So like all my cousins, I think every single person in my family has owned a 3 Series at some point. Like it's clear family tradition. But then some of my earliest memories are like sitting in the computer room, like when I was like 8 years old, like playing Need for Speed Most Wanted and Underground 2 and those kind of things. So I think they probably came around the same time. But I think even throughout my like life, it's been a constant. So like with YouTube anyway, I did FIFA at one point, I did COD at one point, but I didn't cover racing games through that period, but I always liked cars.
mm.
And then I think it came out like around like in sixth form as I was leaving to go to uni. I kind of just realized like I think cars is my like ultimate passion. And that's not to say that like I don't like the sports and I don't like these other things.
Yeah.
Like I think it's just one of those things. Like I always come back to cars. Even like during my youth when I was kind of like mixing.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing. I get that. It's just something that's you guess you found earlier on, and then although of course other things come along as you go through life, but I guess cars was always that thing for you. What
Yeah.
what would you say? I mean, I know there's a lot of people who, when they talk about cars, they love like the sound of the engine. They love like being behind the wheel, like feeling that kind of what is it for you about cars that you think, you know, that means that for you it's like that thing that you love? What's that for you?
Think it's just it's not like just one thing. So like I think it's yeah, it's just a mixture. It's the engagement, it's the emotion of it. Like, you know, I think because I've tried to explain this before to like people who aren't necessarily car people, especially like at work, for example. Like you'd be surprised, not many people in the music industry are car people, but like yeah, it's just the emotion it gives you, you know, that feeling, the feeling of like, you know, going from 0 to 60 or going around a corner and being able to feel the chassis move underneath you through the steering and, you know, hearing the engine roaring and, you know, those kind of things. I think that's what makes me enjoy cars. And then I think, you know, one step further, this, you know, the emotion just doesn't just come from the way a car drives, but the way a car looks like. You know, I think at a very young age, there's a reason why when you're going to buy a Hot Wheels, you buy the one with the biggest wing. Like, you know, you haven't got like that is like there's something in my monkey brain. Like when I just see a big wing, it's like, oh shit, that's like fucking cool. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's just if I had to give a one word answer, probably be emotion.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like for myself, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm wouldn't consider myself like a car fan, but you know, there's definitely a few that I like, and I think for like you said about the look of a car, there's certain cars for me that I feel like they have like a really cool look,
Yeah,
you know, and for me, it's more like the sort of pickup truck style cars. You
yeah,
know, I really like the look and shape of those cars,
yeah,
even though they're so inefficient in how they
yeah.
run. You
But
know,
yeah,
like
and you
they
haven't got to be a car
guzzle.
person to like appreciate that as well. Like, you know, I think like, you know, I'm a petrol head, but a lot of people I speak to who aren't even car people, they just have like that emotional connection to like either a certain type of car or a brand or da 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 da. Da. And I think that's something everyone can relate to, regardless if you're into cars or not, kind of thing.
Mm, yeah, just something about a certain aesthetic, you
Yeah,
know, that
the
appeals
way
to
it
the
looks, you know, is the batty big or you know, like what's going
yeah.
on, like
It's got the
you
bunda.
know, yeah, man.
Cool. Well, actually, you mentioned about being a petrol head, and I don't know how it is in your part of the country, but in this part of the country, there is a big push towards electric cars from the government. I think it's by 2030, you're not going to be able to buy like a petrol diesel car anymore. It's going to be electric cars only. And there's already in place like certain, say, incentives for people to move to electric cars. Personally, I don't mind. I like electric cars. I drive an electric car and I think it's pretty cool. It's certainly a lot cheaper to run than a petrol car, especially right now, right? The fuel prices are ridiculous.
Yeah.
But being a petrol head, and you talked about like the movement of the chassis and the engine, and I mean, what does that do for you in terms of like the enjoyment of driving?
Um, so I think that depends, right? So the one thing with electric cars, from like an engagement perspective, is they're really heavy, and like as an enthusiast car, that's like one of the things that you'd want to avoid at all costs. Like, you know, and I think even if you're not an enthusiast, like weight is something you need to avoid really, because with more weight, like obviously they get more dangerous. Like if you go into a crowd of children in a 2-ton EV, that's obviously going to do a lot more damage than
Mm,
something which is, you know, obviously a lot lighter. But from like an engagement perspective, they're just completely different. Like that's not to say that electric cars like don't have straight line performance and stuff, but for me, like what I enjoy out of cars isn't necessarily that straight line performance. It's, you know, what we were talking about with the balance and the feel and those kind of things.
mm,
I think with electric cars, I kind of see them more as like a tech product than like a kind of normal car, you
mm,
know. And I
yeah.
think even the way people talk about them, I just with a normal ICE combustion engine car, there's just yeah, there's a lot more moving parts, and I think the way that people just treat EVs, it's not in the same vein. I don't know if I'm articulating this in the right way. I don't know if you get what I
I
mean.
think I understand you. Yeah, I mean, certainly, like they when it comes to things like maintenance and stuff like that, you know, I mean, of course, you've got the tires, you've got to check, you've got the brakes and that sort of thing, you've got to check as you normally would. But then, yeah, you're pretty much plugging in a laptop and running the diagnostics and,
Yeah, and I
and
think,
let the car tell you what's wrong with it.
yeah, and then even like from a perspective of that all these cars are built on the same architecture. So for example, like VW, so the Porsche Taycan is the same architecture as the Audi e-tron. And if you look at the cars side by side, you'll be able to see a similar shape. And even the way they're manufactured, the way they're produced, it's all very, it's like a tech product. It's like, it's like a motherboard, like, for, the
Yeah.
Galaxy S series, like it doesn't change that dramatically between the phones. And it's kind of the same thing with cars. And that's not to say that I'm against electric cars, because I'm not. But I think, I could see myself owning one as a commuter car, for example, where if I'm doing a lot of miles. But, I think I'll always have a petrol car in my garage, if not multiple. And I think, especially in the short-term future, I'll definitely be delaying that switch for as long as possible, I
Yeah.
think.
Do you guys have that push for electric cars in your parts?
Yeah, so I live near Birmingham, and there's like ULEZ areas, like low emissions areas, and those kind of things. I think like I'd say pretty much like, because I commute up to Manchester, and I know around there it's like the same as well. So to be honest, I do think it's like countrywide. Like I don't think
Okay.
that's just like a London centric thing. Um, but I don't know, even with the incentives, so things like grants, like they've dramatically reduced the grant you get on an electric car, like literally, I think like a month ago. And the incentives are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. I think the thing with electric cars is until they become affordable, it's just going to be so hard for mass adoption. And at the moment, they are very expensive.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like I say, I like it because it's just a lot cheaper to run, and so for me, it kind of works out fine. But yeah, certainly, and being fortunate enough to be able to get a home charger definitely helps a lot as well. But to rely on the public infrastructure, I mean, it's not bad. When I was using the public chargers, it's certainly not terrible. In London, there's plenty around, but the problems you have is things like, you look on your app and it tells you there's one available a mile away from you or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
by the time you get there, somebody else is using it, so you got to wait.
Yeah.
And then it's things like the car park that it's in might only have a 2 hour limit before you got to get out, so you can't always wait. By the time you've in the car park for a while, your time in the car park is up, so you kind of get out the car park before you get fined.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of like little things like that, and plus like Shell and BP, who have quite a lot of charges in their stations now, especially Shell. But
Yeah.
they're really expensive. Like they
Yeah.
overcharge for their charging. They literally overcharge for their charging. Pun not intended, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they really overcharge for their charging. To the point where, I mean, it's still cheaper than fill up your car with petrol, but if you're using, say, Shell almost exclusively, you'll probably find your savings might not be that much. Because
Yeah.
they kind of take the piss with their prices with that.
And the
So yeah,
savings for the stuff that runs it is cheaper, but like the barrier to entry is a lot higher, as it is with any
yeah,
new emerging technology. Like you look at folding phones, you look at literally anything like HDTVs when they first came out, it's the same thing, and that will
yeah.
go down, but I think it's gonna be a steady decrease for sure.
Yeah, certainly. But I think, like, I mean, where the electric car, well, don't want to say when they first came on the market, because electric cars have been around for many, many years. But when they first started, I guess, get a bit more popular,
Last
they're,
few years, last 4 or 5 years, probably.
yeah, they're like
Yeah.
really, really expensive. They have come down a little bit since then. So, it is in that motion of moving down. But yeah, the
Yeah.
average electric car is still at a point where, most people either can't afford it or maybe have to, save it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's not
Yeah.
quite mass available price just yet. Maybe like a few more years where it gets down to like, say, 30,000, 20,000, 25, 20,000 on the average, and then could be a bit more adoptable.
It will be interesting to see, like, if this really is the future, or whether it's like another repeat of diesel, or if, like biofuels, for example, become like the standard, or where we go from here. Because at the moment, electric cars still aren't fully sustainable with the way we make energy in the UK.
Right.
So
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, like I think it might be different around London, but I know in Birmingham for sure, where like the way that energy is made here is very coal dependent, I think, which obviously is not good for the environment.
Yeah, like I did
Yeah,
see like because of the higher emissions involved in making an electric car versus making, say, a petrol car, the actual environment savings or right, the
yeah.
actual emission difference. Um, if you don't drive very much, you're not going to be making much difference in terms of actual emissions output. It's only when you
Yeah.
start driving more than, I think it's like 80, 90,000. So if you're someone who does a lot of miles, then cool, right? But if you're the type of person who drives, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 miles and sells your car, yeah, you're not going to do much in terms of environmental difference.
And then you'd also keep in mind that 90,000 miles on an electric car, the battery, just like your phone, is going to get weaker.
Mm,
And then where do those batteries go? As well, like an ice combustion car can go for hundreds of thousand miles.
mm.
There's pros and cons to both, I think, but I'm not entirely convinced electric is the future. I think wait 5 more years and see what happens, because they've already delayed the ice ban, because it was supposed to be 2030, but now it's 2035. So they've already delayed that by 5 years.
So what's the ice
So
ban? Is that like?
like ice is just like short for petrol like combustion engines.
Oh,
What
right,
was
okay.
the internal combustion engine is what like
Oh,
ICE stands
okay,
for.
gotcha.
But that was originally 2030. They've delayed that to 2035. So let's just see what happens. Like I think,
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's a lot of Bojo promises that potentially could or may could go either way kind of thing.
Well, speaking of the potential future, what's your thoughts on the possibility of self-driving cars?
Uh, I think again, it comes back to what I was saying before about electric cars generally. Like I can see that being really cool for like commuting.
Hmm.
But anything other than that, to be honest, I don't think the idea of AI driving a car that scares the shit out of me. Like I
Hmm.
think that is a very scary thing. I think we're already too automated with a lot of things. Like
Yeah.
there's just some things you see in like your Twitter timeline, like the news and stuff, and it's like, yo, this is literally Black Mirror or like iRobot or some shit. Like, how is this happening in the real world? Like, sex robots are real now. Like, what do you
Hey, they've
mean?
been real
Like,
for a minute though.
yo,
They're just getting cheaper now.
and
Like
people gonna be
everything,
buying
prices
them
come
as
down.
well. That's what I mean. They're gonna have 3 of each or whatever. Like, but with self-driving cars, I just think that is a legal minefield. So what happens if like you're driving a Tesla and you go straight into the back of like a 7-seater SUV full of family and they all like fucking die? Like, is that your fault? Is that Elon's fault? Is that
Mm,
like that? There's that whole element of it, and then there's yeah, I don't know. It's a scary world. I went to California last November to see some YouTube mates, and the amount of people like who were using the autopilot, but they were just on their phones, like kind of, and not
yeah.
driving and all those kind of things. Like, I just think that's so irresponsible. I think there's a certain element of like how much convenience do we need as a
Yeah.
society? Like, is it really that paramount that you can't just drive in a straight line for an hour and a half to work? Like, you know, that's what I think of it.
You know what you mentioned though, I think it's really interesting because I used to work in insurance, and yeah, I feel like that's maybe one of the things you don't really hear a lot of people talk about when it comes to self-driving cars. Who exactly is responsible? Because how it is now, if I'm driving, I'm in control of that car. If
Yeah.
I do something stupid, I'm responsible because I control the car. If I'm not driving, I'm not responsible, right?
Well, I'm telling you, Elon definitely is not
And
taking that insurance
right,
claim.
exactly. And he's not going to want to be paying my insurance
No,
claims for cars that crash. So,
no.
am I responsible? If I'm going to be responsible for the car, it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem fair. But then, yeah, is there Tesla or whoever makes these cars going to be like, yeah, we'll take on the burden of paying these insurance
Well, I mean, it's already
claims?
happening in the States. Like, I think especially in Cali, there's certain areas that like are allowing self-driving currently, and there has been crashes and fatalities and but I'll tell you one thing: Tesla and Elon and any of the companies, it's not just them. Like, Porsche, like VW, they are not going to be they are not going to be paying out your claim, bro.
Yeah,
They
they
will not be
were.
paying out your claim. You're going to be stuck.
The millions and millions they'd have to pay out if they took that responsibility on, those companies would
Yeah,
go bankrupt real quick.
yeah, they
You
will not
know,
be doing
they're not doing that. And I mean, I guess it's like everything, you kind of wait and see. I mean, my thoughts on that, as somebody who does drive quite a lot, I feel like you're gonna have a lot of challenges in terms of getting people to give up driving, because a lot of
that.
people, even though they're not very good at it, still like to drive. And the
You
idea
think?
of not doing that, I feel like, yeah, you're gonna have a big way of trying to convince people to not be behind the wheel of their car. But
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. The
Because
technology's
like
certainly
that's
there.
interesting from my perspective, because as someone who is like a car person, I obviously enjoy driving, and then most of the people I talk to are car people. So it's like, from someone who's not a car person, I would have thought it would have been the opposite way around, where you would have been like, oh yeah, just let me drive, let it drive for me, kind of thing.
You know what it is. I feel like, I mean, yeah, I feel there will be people like that for sure. And I think there is definitely the idea of this cool convenience factor for maybe short trips. It might be fine. But another thing, by the way, self-driving cars in London, I wouldn't trust it. No way, no way, no way. But say like a short trip or something in a relatively empty area, the kind of
Yeah,
convenience factor of just sitting in the back and be on the phone or typing away at your laptop or whatever you're doing while on the way for, I don't know, say 20 minutes or whatever. It's kind of cool idea, right? But I think when it comes down to it, people who drive like on a regular basis, even if they're not necessarily car people, I think there's something about being in control of a vehicle that
mm,
is a very kind of human thing, just being in control of this, object that could
yeah,
potentially kill somebody. I think
yeah,
it speaks to a kind of a very kind of maybe caveman, Neanderthal
yeah,
part of our brain that
yeah.
we're doing this, and to be able to get people to give that up willingly, yeah, I think that's going to be a struggle. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be a struggle
I,
with a lot of
I think
people.
one thing that is like sad as things get more convenient, and these comes back going back to what we were saying about the engagement and stuff, is that the next generations aren't going to be able to like explain to be able to feel that and stuff. And I think even like me, you know, if I was born 10 years ago, I actually would have been able to afford some of the cars that I actually wanted to buy. Like as we're now, like as we're kind of on the end of petrol cars, it's like everything's going up, and obviously the current world situation doesn't help that either. But I think as time will go on, I think the kind of relationship we have with cars will change quite dramatically. I think even if you look at now compared to like say the 60s when it was like a completely new thing, I think already it's they're two worlds apart. Like I think back then it was a little bit more like said a little bit more about your personality. It was a bit more of a statement kind of thing, as where
Mm,
now it's a bit more of like a tool, as I mentioned before.
mm, yeah, yeah. I think just how, I guess, different attitudes towards what a car is. I mean, you buying a car as an item to do a particular thing, and what is the most important thing to you? Is it, the driving of the car, or is it what the car says about you as, like I say, it's maybe a social status symbol, or is it just the fact that it can get you from this point to this point, within a certain amount of time, and
Yeah, and it's like it's even more basic than that. Like just less and less young people are taking driving tests. Like less and less young people were like actually doing that, and I think I mean that's not a good thing. That can
well,
only be
I
a bad
mean,
thing for the car world from a car perspective.
all right. Before we move on a little bit, actually, let me ask you this as one. I guess, I mean, I drive a lot, but I still consider myself, say, more of a casual driver, for the most part. But from one relatively casual driver to someone who's a car enthusiast, what is the most annoying things you see people doing on the road? Let's see if we could compare notes a little bit.
Do you want me to just list them off?
Is that long?
People, the number one is probably people's in the right hand lane on the motorway.
Oh, okay, yeah,
It's
yeah.
fucking annoying,
People just go
man. Like move,
vroom.
yeah, just move out of the way. Like that is probably number one. People being overly hesitant and not just driving the car properly, like or just people not observing like speed limits, and you know,
Mm.
it's almost as dangerous to be doing 20 in a 30 than it is to be doing 40 in a 30. Like, just people, just yeah. I think old people need to do their driving test again as well, because the amount of old people I see on the road, that just their reaction time is not what it used to be. That's also another annoying thing. I think you should have to redo your driving test every like 20 or 30 years, because that's also a bit of a joke. What else? What else do I not like? I don't know. Dangerous driving, I don't really see much of it. The occasional, you know, someone cutting you off, whatever. But I think more it's just people just don't understand the rules of the road. Like things like, you know, the left hand is the cruising lane, and the right hands are overtaking lanes. I know before they didn't used to do like the motorway driving as part of a test. I don't know if it's changed now. I think it has changed now. But yeah, I don't know. I think my number one is probably just people hogging the middle and the right lane. That is, oh my god, that frustrates me so much.
I think like yourself, I could probably do like a whole podcast on just annoying things, but
Yeah, or
just
people at roundabouts who don't understand that, like, if the person on the right is stood still, you can go. Like, sometimes you get up to the roundabout and everyone will be stopped, and I'll be like, you know what, fuck you lot, I'm just gonna go. Like, yeah.
I definitely see a lot of dangerous driving. A lot of people taking so many unnecessary risks, like not even, like you mentioned, roundabouts. As the amount of times I've seen people like go up to a roundabout, not even look to see if there's a car coming, and just like drive
That's
into it.
London for you.
You know, and it's like, dude, like there could have been, and especially like a lot of times as you're coming to a roundabout, it's kind of a blind kind of thing, so you can't see fully round it as you approach it. You kind of have to slow down to look properly. They won't even do it. It's just, you know, just keep going. People being super impatient is another big one as well.
Yeah.
You know, like just every little thing is like that horn is going off.
Yeah, something changes when people get in their little bubble.
Right.
They wouldn't do that, and they wouldn't do that if they're walking and, like, you know, you were in the like, you know, doorway or something. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the whole thing about being in a, I guess, a position of perceived safety. You know, because if you shout and swear at somebody, chances are they're not going to come chase you. They're going to go about their way. You're going to go about your way. And that's pretty much what happens. They do whatever and they go off that way. You go off that way. And that's pretty much the end of it. So I feel like there's something about this perceived safety.
That's the reason why people middle lane hog, right? It's because they're not next to the barriers on the motorway. So it's that element of perceived safety, because if anything was going to happen, you'd have space on the left and right kind of thing. That's what a lot of people say.
Yeah, but like I said, I think some people need to even take their lessons again and maybe just get off the road altogether, really.
I know a few family members that need to have their tests retaken. Don't get it twisted. Like everyone watching this podcast, I bet you know someone who needs to retake their driving test.
Yeah, probably know a few at least.
Yeah.
All right. So talked a little bit about cars, and of course, you know, you do a lot of gaming involving cars. For you then, what was like the closest a game can get to driving a car? Like, what game have you played over the years that you feel like this is really nailed it in terms of driving?
So in terms of like realism, there's a simulator called Assetto Corsa, and they actually used it in like Porsche dealerships to like display the cars before, if they're not available for test drives and stuff. And that is without a like shadow of doubt, like the most realistic game I've ever experienced. Especially, obviously, I'm speaking a lot about it on a wheel, not with the controller kind of thing. But on a wheel, yeah, like I still play it to this day. Like I don't even know how many hours I've got now. I don't even want to look. We're talking months of like game time in this game, like, you know, like over the course of many years. But yeah, probably Assetto Corsa is the most realistic game I've ever felt. And then the modding scene for it's really good. So like, there's like open world maps. You know, obviously there's real life tracks. There's real life cars, fictional cars. There's race cars. Like literally anything you can think of. Like Fast and Furious trucks. Like anything you can think of. Like it's just a sandbox basically for cars.
Do you prefer the wheel to a control pad then, or does it ultimately make a difference?
I think there's a time and a place for both. So like sometimes I can't be asked to set up my wheel, and I just want to sit back and just chill, and like, you know, it's kind of that same thing with keyboard and mouse really. Like when I'm playing COD, sometimes I I'll get real sweaty. But then sometimes I just want to sit back and just chill and just kill some zombies, like, you know.
Mm,
And it's kind of the same thing with the wheel. I think, yeah, I think recently I've been using it more, but I tend to go through like periods where I'll use my wheel a lot, then I'll use my controller a lot, then I use my wheel a lot. I think it just depends on how I'm feeling, really, if I can be asked, more so than anything else. But I don't really have a preference. Some games are better on controller, some games are better on wheel. It just depends on game to game, I think. Like with Gran Turismo recently, I've been playing that shit ton on a controller.
mm. What do you think of? I mean, I I guess I mean I played a few racing games, but I tend to prefer the more sort of arcade style racing games. Not, but actually, I mean, not quite. I mean, between say sim and arcades, like there's kind of this endless battle between which people
Yeah.
prefer. And for me, I feel like when they're too arcadey, I can't really get into it. But when they're too sim, also, it's just too much for me. When it starts talking about balancing wheels and tension tracks, it's like, what is, bro? It's just too much for me.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like the most ideal racing game, the most sort of perfect racing game for me was Project Gotham Racing 2, where
Good
it
game.
just really nailed that balance between the arcadey style and the sim side of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, do you find you have a preference when it comes to sims, arcades, or do you like the balance?
I used to be very heavy arcade, but I think as I've become more like as I've driven more in real life, I've started to gravitate more towards The Sims because like my understanding of cars has completely changed. But
Hmm.
I also think there's probably an element of that is of like the fact that there isn't any many good arcade racing games that have been released in the past 5 years. Like Forza Horizon is probably the only one. So I think it probably comes more from a place of like there just isn't many good racing games that are being released at the moment, and all the good ones tend to be more on the semi side.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think again, it's like a time and a place, isn't it? Like sometimes you just want to sit back and you just like you don't want to think about it too much, but then sometimes like you want to sit down and get real sweaty. I think I like both as much as each other. Like I can think of fantastic arcade racing games that could go head to head with a sim racing game in terms of how much fun I'd have with it. But yeah, I think it's just like a time and a place for
Okay.
it.
All right. And
You know the
let's see.
fence.
Out of like non-racing or let's say non-car centric games, but games that have like a driving element, because like I don't know, like like an open world game, but there's a bit
I
where you
think
got to
I
drive
already
from
know the
one
answer
bit
to
to
this
another.
question.
Right. So what would you say out of the say non-driving centric games has the best driving mechanics?
GTA 4 probably.
Yeah,
Yeah,
GTA.
I think that's quite fast on that. Yeah, GTA 4 without the shadow of a doubt. It has
Interesting.
from memory, like just thinking off the bat. Yeah, it was one of those games. It's actually like somewhat like simulatory, but it still has that arcade like twist on it. Like the cars slide around, like the weight transfer. You can see the suspension moving around, but it's also not to the point where like you have to actually take lines and stuff. But yeah, there's something about GTA 4, the way the cars move in that game. All the cars feel super different. It's not like San Andreas where they some of them just change like speed, like the weight of them matters. When you have the impact, the damage on the cars, like yeah. But that also, with that being said, GTA 4 is one of my favorite games of all time, so I might be a little bit biased. But
That's interesting because I've always felt with GTA games they've purposely made the drive-in handle badly so that you can crash more. But that being said, GTA 4 is probably the one I played the least. So interesting.
the
Maybe
story in that game, oh my god, I think finished it like 6 or 7 times. But yeah, they like in 4 it's quite a lot harder than 5. In 5 they made it a lot easier, a little bit more arcadey. Things like your car, you can flip your car back over when it goes on its side.
hmm,
That wasn't a thing in 4. Like if your car was on its side, you wouldn't be able to like flip it back over. And there's loads of things like the cars aren't as weighty, and you can pull off slides a little bit easier in 5, and you can take loads more damage. But I think a lot of that has to do with the world's a lot different as well. There's a lot more open areas, and it's just how they balanced it. But I think I prefer 4 over 5 for sure.
okay. Interesting. You might.
Mm.
I don't know if you're the
Go
only
back.
one's gonna say that, but I feel like a lot of people would prefer 5. I don't
I
know.
think so because it's easier.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
easier. It's easier to fall. I think fall from like again like from my petrol head perspective, it actually reminds me more of a racing game than like an open world, like just open world car physics kind of thing. But I think most people would probably say 5 for sure because it's a little bit more arcadey.
Okay. Well, actually, since we talk about GTA for a moment, I mean, GTA 6 has been like in the rumors for like 100 years at this point. Like, and I know they
Yeah.
kind of made some kind of a sort of official announcement that they're working on
Mm,
it, which is like, sure,
yeah.
okay. But I don't know. I still feel like we're a long way off GTA 6, you know?
Yeah, I've got some strong opinions about GTA 6, to be honest. I'm kind of happy you mentioned it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't
Let's hit
think
some of
that this
them.
game is going to be like, so every single time a GTA game is released in my lifetime, that I can remember, it's like literally shook the world. Like it's haven't even got to be a gamer to know about like GTA releasing, like, and
Mm.
it's moved the industry forward every single time. I think, especially following this game's development. So I don't know how much you've been following it, but Hauser is it Sam, Dan or Sam? Dan?
Dan Hauser, yeah.
What is Dan?
Dan, well, I think
Dan.
Dan and Sam Hauser.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
they're
Dan
brothers, I
left.
believe. They're
Dan left
brothers.
the
I'm sure they're brothers.
team.
They've got the same last names. I think they're brothers. Or
Well,
they're
one of them's still there. I think
related.
Sam's still there, but Dan left the team as well as some of the other executive producers that have been there since like GTA 3 San Andreas. Um, Not to mention how long it's been in development. Like, and I've got a suspicion that this game has been in development hell, um, and that like, yeah, without the people who are the heads of the whole idea, like those people that have been there since the early games. I really really struggle to see how they're going to move the industry forward. That's not just based off speculation, by the way. That's based off the recent DLCs they've been releasing for 5. That's based on Red Dead Redemption 2. I didn't like Red Dead Redemption 2. I thought that was a pretty poor, like the way it was delivered and all those kind of things was good, but the actual gameplay, oh my god, the pacing, I thought that was terrible. It was awful. It's the only Rockstar game I've not been able to finish because I just got fucking sick of riding that fucking horse. And I loved Red Dead Redemption 1. Red Dead Redemption 1 was my favorite Rockstar games. So it's not the horse element of it which puts me off. Like there's so many things about that game I just didn't like. And then not to mention the way GTA Online's gone. They don't seem very player centric anymore. They seem very microtransactions. Let's make that motherfucking bread. I think Rockstar in now compared to Rockstar when GTA 5 released, they're two completely different entities. Like it's like Infinity Ward when they released Modern Warfare 2 compared to the Modern Warfare 2019. They're completely different teams, and I don't think 6 is going to be as big like as a shift as 5, 4, or even San Andreas was.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because, like, especially a lot they've been doing with GTA Online. They've put loads of content for GTA Online, and part of me does kind of wonder how much of that was maybe an idea for GTA 6 that's now in GTA Online. So, if they're I don't know this for as a fact, but if they're possibly taking off ideas from GTA 6 and put them into this GTA Online, what's left of GTA 6, and is that still enough to make a groundbreaking game? Is it still enough to make something that's really going to blow people's minds, especially as it has been? I mean, GTA 5 was 10 years ago now.
2013. Yeah,
2013,
2013.
so nearly 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And okay, sometimes that happens with games between one and another, sure. But then I feel like we're in a point in gaming history whereas before you might have a long time between one iteration, one game and then a sequel, and maybe you get like a sprinkle of DLC in between. Right now there's been a lot of content in between when GTA was originally released and then GTA 6 could potentially be released. There's been a lot of content, not only a lot of content, but a lot of updates to the original game. Like they've changed bits and removed bits and added bits, and there's been a lot of changes. So it's kind of like, okay, you clearly kept a lot of people happy because they've made billions during that time. But by the time this game comes out, what's there? That's going to be like, this is why you have a whole new game and not just another piece of DLC. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I
Like,
think
what's left
I think especially with
potentially?
Rockstar more specifically, it's like just even the way they treat the fan base. So, for example, one of the first Heist DLCs was actually supposed to be part of a single player like campaign, like
Mm,
additional DLC that actually got scrapped. You know, and just those kind of things, like. They actually promised a single player DLC in one of the first newswires they did. I remember it because I remember reading the article. And that eventually all got scrapped to go into GTA Online, obviously because they're making more money from it and like, yeah, just the way they've just been handling themselves. The orbital cannon, and like everyone knows about the orbital cannon, the fact you could pay to kill someone on the map. The oppressor only recently got nerfed. I'm not really that big of a GTA Online player anymore, but I just can't see how they aren't gonna make that like the core of GTA 6, knowing how much money is there to be
mm,
made. Like, I just, yeah, I'm not looking forward to that game at all. Well, I am looking forward to it. I'll play it, but I'm not
yeah.
like eagerly, and I'm like cautiously optimistic kind of thing.
Mm. I feel like the biggest thing that has held GTA 6 back is GTA Online and Rockstar. They must know that trying to get as many people to migrate over to a whole new online game is going to be difficult. Not impossible, sure, but it's going to be difficult because a lot of people have built up, their characters. I mean, like, I haven't really played much online, GTA Online, but I think you could like you buy different clothes and you can
Yeah.
buildings and you can spend a lot of time and money building your reputation in a GTA Online,
Or
and
you can just buy
then
shark cards.
right, so it's
Yeah.
like transferring that over to this whole new server. Like, how does that work? Are they gonna just like have people migrate and they keep everything and they transfer it to some code or whatever? Are they gonna make people start again and spend all that money again, which probably won't go down too well? Certainly not in the beginning.
I can see a
Um,
world where even the single player has your online character in, and it's like that way, so it's not like an
mm.
actual character is you kind of thing. And if that happens, I'd cry, to be honest. If we don't have like another Nico or another just another character, that would be really disappointing. I think another Trevor, another
Yeah.
Gay Tony.
I mean, the last rumor I heard was that the world is going to be, I think, like something like twice as big or three times as big as like San Andreas and Liberty City all combined. It's supposed to be like a really massive world they're working on for GTA 6.
Oh,
But
like even that, it's like
yeah,
I'm so sick of all these companies saying bigger, bigger, bigger. Like
mm,
bigger is not always necessarily better. Like,
true,
and
true.
I'm so sick of it because even Need for Speed did that for the longest of times, but all the maps were dog shit, and it's like, there's a certain point where it's too big. Like,
Mm.
how long does it take just to get on one side of the GTA 5 map at the moment? Like, it's a ball ache. So I don't think bigger is necessarily better. I think denser is better than bigger, if that makes sense. Like a lot of the time.
Oh,
So that'd
you
be
like
interesting
sort
to
of
see how they
have more
work.
detail in the smaller parts.
Yeah, more vertical and just more like being able to go into interiors and
Right, right, right.
having
Yeah,
like
yeah.
multi stories and just like actually having layers and like as if you would in a real city.
Mm,
But yeah, I think that's more an execution. Obviously, I'm speaking from a very kind of like hypothetical
yeah.
situation, but I think I didn't think bigger is always better. I do kind of roll my eyes at that, but I get it's an easy like marketing thing to say at the
Mm.
trailer in E3 and like I understand why they do it.
Yeah, I feel like that sort of thing just speaks to the kid gamer a little. That
Yeah,
sounds insulting. Maybe it is a little bit, but you know what I mean. Like,
I
because when
own
you
it,
when you're
bro. Own
young,
it.
it's always about big, 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 big. And when you hear about this game's gonna be longer, it sounds exciting. But
Yeah,
I think as you kind of play more games, or maybe just get a bit more into it, maybe get older, whatever it may be. But yeah, like you say, like you hear things like bigger, and it doesn't necessarily impress you because one, that means a lot more time, which could be difficult when you're working and you got this and you got this. Like, so that's an off. That's putting off already. Plus the fact that a bigger world is going to be harder to make it feel more real,
yeah,
because how many times are you going to have the same "Hey, I'm walking here" line repeated,
yeah. The same
throughout,
house.
right? Or this, yeah,
Yeah, the
exactly,
same
or this
house, same
same door, and it's like,
signs, same this, same Yeah.
the same cars doing the same sorts of things.
Mm.
Like how real can you make the world feel from one section to the next section? How different can they really be? I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible. Sure, I mean, modern technology, maybe they've got bigger teams now and this, that, and the third. So I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's
Trying to
certainly a
think.
lot more difficult to do. Right. So it's like by the time it's released, what do we have?
Like the last open world game that really like wowed me, and I never got to finish it because I had to sell my Switch, was probably Zelda.
Okay,
But
yeah.
like other than that, really, like something that's not a Nintendo, that's don't even know. Like I've not played an open world game that surprised me probably since GTA 5.
Mm.
Like I can't think of one. No, I enjoyed like games like Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs 2 was also good, but actually wowed me. I was like, yo, this is actually something different I've never seen before. Zelda, the only one I can
Mm.
think of, really.
Yeah, I think I mean I never did complete Zelda in the end, but Breath of the Wild in the end. But yeah, I mean Nintendo seem to do really well when it comes to that series, and I feel like they've kind of well they probably hit their stride a long time ago, to be honest. But
Yeah,
they know what they're doing when it comes to Zelda games. Like you're pretty much as close a guarantee as you can get that you're gonna have a pretty solid experience playing a Zelda game. You know.
yeah.
Um, let's talk a little bit more about you now, shall we?
Jeez.
Um, and yeah, because like you mentioned that you're working in the music industry, you make music, you're doing YouTube, you've been doing YouTube for was it 9 years or so close to 10 years now. You know, you was in school when you started, and now you've been to college. You know, now working, and that's a long journey and a lot of stuff within that. Like, how do you balance that? How have you balanced it, and how do you balance um, everything now? Because I mean, even for myself, it can be difficult at times getting scheduling right or getting timing right. Like, but you do like bloody. I'm like this, and you're doing like this. You know, so like, how's that go for you? How's that balance work for you?
So it's definitely changed throughout the years, I think. There's always been periods where, sometimes I'll be doing more work outside of the channel, then I'll be more inside the channel. Like I've gone through periods where I've done YouTube full time, and that was like my main source of income. Then I've gone through periods where like now where it's the other way around. So obviously priorities change. But one thing I have found is as I've been in a job that I've been enjoying, it takes a lot of the pressure off compared to when before I joined this job I was doing YouTube full time, and I was doing all right to be fair. But yeah, it just takes the pressure off it. I think now having a job
Hmm.
and not having to kind of like scrap for like I was uploading I think 3 to 4 times a week, streaming three times a week during that period. And yeah, it just takes that pressure off not having to hustle so hard, I think, and it kind
Hmm.
of allows me to take a few more risks. Like for example, the in real life stuff. That's something I don't think I would have been able to do if I didn't have a job, because that's not what typically does maximum views on the channel.
Hmm.
But now having a job now, and I haven't got to worry about those kind of things. I can take more creative risks, but not only just that, I can take more time with videos. Obviously, the amount of uploads drops with that
Yeah.
because you've got a 9 to 5, and there's only so much time, so many hours in the day, and like, yeah, I don't want to be burnt out. I've done that before. I've been burnt out for YouTube before. Been
Hmm.
here for 10 years, so obviously it's going to happen at some point. It's happened to me. Probably 2019 and maybe like 2016. So I think it happens to anyone who is a creator at some point. If you do push yourself too hard, you might not even know it at the time until
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think like how do I deal with it now? I kind of just make a video when I feel like it and try not to leave it too long. Like 2 to 3 weeks. I don't really like going any longer than that. But sometimes life is what it is, and
Yeah.
sometimes it is longer, sometimes it's 2 uploads in 2 weeks. It's whenever you can, really. But it's always nice seeing the regular people in the comment section, and I think it's nice to see, having been here for like 10 years now, and like there's always a couple thousand people always watching at the very least. Like you know, regardless of the content as well. That's something which I really, really appreciate. And I probably don't say it enough because I'm quite quiet on Twitter nowadays. But yeah, no, I really appreciate that kind of stuff, to be honest. Anyone that's watching, thank you.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
Anybody's watching that one view that you get
Yeah,
sometimes, or that one good comment you get, sometimes that's all it takes. You know, it's like yes,
yeah, man.
you know. But no, I like what you said though about just being able to upload as you feel like it because you're in a job that you like, and I think that's something that a lot of times we don't really discuss when it comes to being a content creator, or I guess any kind of creative really. You know, you watch a lot of these videos where they talk about how to make it big on YouTube, and it's a lot of the same sorts of things about, you know, getting that algorithm right and getting that schedule right and getting that upload, you know, all that sort of stuff, which is all good advice, of course. But, you know, being in a position where, you know, for somebody who's like they hate their job, they can't wait to get out, and they really need this YouTube thing to work, you know, so they can get out of their job. You know, that the attitude that person has is wildly different, because it's like that person is like, this has got to work, this has got to work, this has got to work, and when it doesn't work, it's just frustration. You know, if that video doesn't hit 100,000 views or whatever it needs, it's frustration, right? Because you really need it to work. But when it's like, okay, I'm doing something that I enjoy doing, I could put this video out knowing that it might not get as many views, but I enjoy making this, and that's so a much better position to be mentally, because
Mm.
then it means that you can keep doing it more. You don't burn out as quickly. You know, you're not as stressed as you might be otherwise. You know, and I feel like that sort of thing is far more important than just getting the algorithm, getting that 10-minute video all the
But
time.
then, you know,
You
the
know,
flip side of that is you don't grow as much.
true.
See, like
That's the
it's a double-edged
balance.
sword.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. So, like, you know, because I probably class myself in that first category at some points as well, because, you know, in my life, you know, trying to rush to get videos out, or, you know, say when there's like a new game that comes out, this, that, and the other, like, you know, it's a double-edged sword. Like, I think when you're in a position where you've got a job and it's not your main form of monetary income, then it, you know, it's all right. But there's nothing wrong with the other side either. I don't think. I think, you know, it's just all about how you manage it. I think in your head.
Mm.
Um, and I think, yeah, there's like pros and cons to both sides of it. Like, if tomorrow my channel just like started doing 1 million views each time, and I could upload whenever I wanted, and I'd still, you know, be able to do it full time, I would in a heartbeat.
Mm. Oh, certainly. I mean, let's be real. Like, if you could do this, yeah. I mean, of
Yeah.
course. But I just feel like when you're on your journey, or you know, like, so it's. I personally feel like it's like much better mental space. And yes, you're right. It does mean you don't grow as much. You won't grow as fast. But I feel like quick. I mean, you start the phrase, you know, the brightest flame burns quickest. You know what I mean? You can, like, I mean, the way the algorithm works on YouTube and a lot of these platforms, you can pretty much figure out relatively easily how to make a video that is very likely to do well and to keep doing that. But the problem is that you end up doing something that either you don't want to do, or you end up doing something that you want to do, but in a way that you don't want to do it, because you're kind of feeding this idea of what gets views. Whereas it seems like you're in a position where it's like, I can take my time, you know, I can dial it back. I can, you know, be a bit chill with it. And it's not that, you know, of course we all would like to get those million views, right? We all still want to get those big numbers. And of course we all want that. But you're not as stressed out if it doesn't happen on this video. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like a healthy balance, to be honest. Like, it's a healthy balance of making the content, you know, that you want to make, but then also hitting the algorithm, because, you know, like, obviously, you know, I put a lot of effort into the videos I make, so I definitely want people to see them.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
know, we don't just put videos out for no reason for it to get 0 views. Like, well, at least I do. I can only speak for myself.
Sure.
So
Oh,
I think
you want, yeah.
it's like, you know, it's like finding a balance of, you know, what's going to do well, then, you know, how are you going to deliver that kind of thing. But I think, yeah, a lot of the reason why the stresses go away for me right now is because that I'm not that reliant on it.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it's definitely finding a healthy balance. You got to give the algorithm what it wants, otherwise, you know, no one's going to see your videos. That's
Mm.
like, you know, you got to be discovered. Like, that's one of them, you know, That's one of the things. Like, I don't think I've uploaded a video below 8 minutes in a while. In a while, you know.
That was a thing. I think it started popping up about 3-4 years ago, give or take. Where I don't remember. I don't remember if it was PewDiePie that did it first, or it was certainly one of the big YouTubers anyway, where they were talking about the sort of 8-10 minute
10:01.
video
Yeah,
and
10:01.
yeah, and it was like it just ever since then it's like you see so many people with that 10 minute video. And look,
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, I've done that. I mean, some
Yeah.
of my videos are just that kind of length anyway, right? But yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was kind of like, okay, maybe I should just prolong this a little bit, just get that 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I just find like, you know, whenever I've kind of done that, where I've, tried to feed the algorithm everything at once. I mean, it's not that it can't be done, or that it's impossible, or that I'm not in a position to even do it. I just sort of feel like, okay, I've done this, but part of me is like, or a big part of me is like, okay, I want to do something else now. I,
Mm,
I want to do something else now. And then it's either like I either do something else knowing that it's probably not going to do as well, or maybe hit that sweet stride, um, or I force myself to do this thing knowing that it's more likely to do well, and it just feels to me like you're just kind of chipping away a little bit. You know what I
mm.
mean? And I think for myself, the most important thing is that you got to be genuine. You know what I mean? You got to be authentic, and sometimes that means not uploading a video today, and
Yeah, I
you
agree.
know sitting back and be like, you know what, I just need to be in this space for a moment, and then come back. And I think ideally, at least, the people who really like support your content would get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The people who really support your content would get it. And it's maybe like the more kind of entitled crowds that were like, "Hey, what you uploaded today? I demand you upload a video today." And it's kind of like,
And I
so,
mean, even it could go as far as like YouTube themselves, like, not promoting videos as much if,
mm,
you're not getting so certain amount of views in 48 hours or those kind of things. Um, you know, I think, yeah, like I said before, like I'm very grateful for the fact that people come back, regardless of the content.
yeah.
Um, and that obviously took a long time. um, but yeah, I'd have nothing else to add really.
That's it's I think we yeah, covered that quite nice actually. But it definitely comes to finding that balance. I think whatever type of content people are making, you definitely need to find a balance that works for you. And sometimes that means doing things that is different to what is recommended. It just needs to work in your lifestyle.
Or just
Um,
in your own way,
yeah.
in your own words, going.
Um, your music though has a has kind of shifted a little bit. Your music. So I listen to some of your stuff. It's quite a bit of your stuff actually. Um, very drum and bass influenced. And I don't want to guess your age, but I reckon you're a lot younger than me.
Go on, give me an age.
And
Are they? What? How old?
well, let's see. Drum and bass was big in the 90s, and I was a teenager in the 90s.
Mm.
And I reckon, I mean, you may be like 5, 6 during that time.
I am 24.
24. So you may
Yeah,
not even
I'm
be
20.
born during that time. Wait a
I
minute.
was 1998. I
Well
was
back.
born there. Yeah.
So yeah, when drum and bass was big, you weren't even a. Okay, so
No,
where
no,
did your
no.
drum and bass influence come from? That's got to be an interesting story.
I've always liked drum and bass. Like drum and bass, grime, bass line, like all those kind of things. Like, growing up in the West Midlands, very like, that's just what you listen to on the Bluetooth, in primary, like Bluetooth me that tune, like that's like kind of the culture I grew up in. But even if you look at games like drum and bass and all those kind of things, very high tempo, like in a lot of the Need for Speed games used to feature a lot of drum and bass, those kind of things. So I've always listened to it, I've always liked it. But then, yeah, recently it was just literally hearing it live at a rave at uni. I've always typically listened to music that's quite fast. don't listen to a lot of stuff that's slow. I find it gets me really sad. I feel like the music you listen to, like, it has a big impact on your mood. Like, I've sat there and listened to Frank Ocean for hours on end, and I end up being depressed. So I just can't do that. And I feel like, yeah, I don't know, there's something about the drum patterns and the how fast it is. It just, keeps me moving, and that's what I like about it. But I think the moment when I kind of realized I actually really like drum and bass is just hearing it live on a wham set of speakers in a crowd, sweaty, very drunk. Yeah.
You ever listen to some of that old school 90s sort of jungle drum and bass
Yeah,
stuff?
a bit of Ray Keefe, bit of, Dead Man Day. Yeah, I know about all them lot.
I tell you what was big, well, there was quite a few
The
big ones,
Goldie.
but the biggest ones at the time were General Levy, M
Yeah.
Beat, and
Wicked,
that was
wicked.
incredible,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Levy, like that was
Yeah.
huge. And then there was
They still play that in the raves nowadays.
oh, they got that.
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
anytime that tune comes on, whether it's like you got your music on shuffle and it just comes on, or you just hear it somewhere, mate, that tune, it till this
Spin that
day.
shit back.
Mr. Levy Panama, we can oh, that was that tune, man.
You gotta
Till
cut that
this
up for a
day.
reel. You've got to cut that up for a reel, like a TikTok or some shit.
Till this day. We can
Clip that.
And then there was another big one was original Nutter, Shy FX.
Shy FX, yeah.
Shy FX, yeah, original. It was he had the clip from Goodfellas where he says one day a couple of kids from the neighborhood took my mum's groceries all the way home. You know why? It was out of respect. And it goes, no way, man, no way, original Nutter. It just goes into it. Mate, this jungle drum and bass, that whole. It was huge back in the day. It was like pirate radios was big back then. I mean, pirate radios are now, but mate,
I did a documentary on pirate radios. Yeah. Well, yeah, like so like in my full-time job, we work with a lot of like these artists. So like like we had Goldie come in for a few bits, and that's a lot of the stuff I do at work is like it's YouTube centric documentaries, but then I also manage their YouTube channel, so it's kind of weirdly full circle.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Man, did you get to meet the artists?
Yeah. So like they'll come in and we get to meet them and shoot with them, and yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool gig, to be fair.
Are you allowed to say who you've met, or was that all?
Yeah. Big names, Carl Cox.
Yes.
Carl Cox, Goldie's come in, Getz has come in. I'm trying to think of people that are like widely remembered because a lot of it is like underground artists, Young Thing, Girls Don't Sink are really big on the garage scene at the moment. They came in. Scream, Benga, Koki, them lot, a lot of big names.
Do they give you like tips on your music?
Yeah, so the idea is so like we do courses like production tutorials. That's the main core of the business, and it's like a video on demand service. So you pay X amount per year, I think it is, like an annual subscription, and you get access to all these different tutorials, like from all these different artists. They teach you how they make certain tunes, how they make certain sounds. But then what I do within the business is I basically make like the kind of like documentaries and more the entertainment side. So like I do that kind of thing. So like we'll have an artist come in and then I'll get them to do like a 5-minute beat challenge for a YouTube video and those kind of things. Or I'll actually go on shoot on like I said earlier on, like with documentaries. And I literally make documentaries about artists following them all over the country and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah. So how's because you do your own gigs, right? So
Say again?
You do gigs, like you do your own shows?
Yeah, I've had a few. Okay,
how's does that go? Okay. I was going to ask if it's going well. I feel like you maybe already answered it.
No, I've had a few. Like that. I think another thing with that is like it's just so hard to. There's so many like plates. I'm trying to, like so many discs I'm trying to cover. I think that's one thing I've learned, especially in the last few years. It's like, the more time you spend in the music world, it takes away from time in the YouTube world, or it takes away from the time in the automotive world. And I think recently I've been trying to like kind of realign with what I, enjoy doing the most, and I think that is automotive, in the automotive realm.
Yeah.
Um, so with kind of with that, it's kind of realigned me a little bit, and I've kind of taken a little bit less time with the gigging side of stuff, and going to like say like live streams and stuff. More kind of like realigning it back to building, kind of automotive and gaming side back up again.
Mm.
Because it's one of those things, isn't it? When you go over to this completely new thing, it's like you're starting from zero again.
Yeah.
And it's I'll still can carry on making and mixing and all those kind of things. And if the opportunity arose, I wouldn't say no. But it's also a case of like, there's only so many hours in the day, and like straight up hippo, that's where my heart lies, I think.
Actually, yeah, there's four other questions. Straight up hippo. I can't remember if the last time we spoke if you mentioned it, but where did that name come from? Straight up hippo.
Yeah, so I was in a Black Ops 1 lobby game on Stadium. I remember it very vividly. And I was going to town. I was going to fucking town. Like, I got like 3 dogs that game. I was absolutely killing it. And there was a guy in there called Straight Up Penguin, and he had a clan. And the idea was it was straight up in the animal. I actually wanted Penguin, but that was already taken. So I went with Hippo. Didn't use the account for like literally 2 years. Then my main one got hacked, and then we went over. And then the reason why I started the YouTube channel was because I wanted people to play with, because all my mates were on Xbox and I was on PlayStation. So, yeah.
So the whole thing started because Cam was looking for friends.
Yeah,
That's
literally,
what
bro.
boys
That is literally. Yeah, I was looking for people to party up with in Modern Warfare 2, and
Hey,
yeah,
why not, right? Why
that
not?
was it.
Just goes to show that if anybody's looking to start YouTube, you don't have to have like this, and you just hey, you know what? I just wanted to do something,
It's
have
a
some
very
people to
different
play some
time as
games
well,
with.
though. A very different
Yeah.
time. Like, I got bullied pretty hard at school for having a YouTube channel, and I don't think that would be the case now.
Oh,
If
I don't
like
imagine that. Yeah.
even in sixth form, like when I was getting flown out to Sweden to play the new Need for Speed games and stuff, like, and it was like it was having YouTube instead of like working a normal kind of job kind of thing. You think, oh my god, that's really cool.
Mm,
Not saying there's anything wrong with doing that either, because I've done that as well.
sure.
But it was just, yeah, it was weird. Like, it was in sixth form, it was always, even up until the point, even when I was at uni, I got some weird looks about it. Less so at uni, in comparison to kind of school, but especially in the early years, mate, I got railed on that shit. But if I listened and like kind of like gave in to all of that kind of stuff, I probably wouldn't have a lot of the stuff I have now. Probably wouldn't be in this job that I have now, let alone be, have my stickers in Need for Speed and have opportunities to work with F1, Mercedes. So it's, a message, I
Mm,
guess. Like, just power
yeah.
through it, man.
Stick to
If
your
you, if,
heart. Stick
yeah,
to your
man,
heart,
do.
man. But yeah, that's such a awesome thing though, because I feel like there's a lot of people who went through getting teased, getting bullied for liking a thing that at the time wasn't so popular. And some of those guys have went on to do incredible things, and also just how the world has changed so much and how attitudes have changed so much. Back in the day, I was talking to a Twitch streamer, Invincible, a few episodes back, and he was talking about something similar where back in the day with anime, you get teased and picked on if you liked anime.
Yeah.
Now it's like the cool thing, and if you don't like anime, you kind of looked upon as being weird. So that's so much changes in a period of time. But I think ultimately, it's like, yeah, if you like something, it might not be the cool thing at that point, but yeah, if you like it, stick to it.
And I think, yeah, like 2009 was when like this was in its infancy. Like,
Mm,
I've kind of been here as not just as a content creator, but as a viewer as well. Like, through the machinima days, when they were used to offer
mm,
like, partnerships, when people used to do like Modern Warfare 2, like gameplay commentaries, like,
yeah,
the early days of before the players changed, and it was all in that little square on the left with the just suggested on the right, and they had the 5 stars, 4 stars, where you
yeah,
could change the channel art. And I've been here as, I'm not just a content creator, but I actually watch like probably more YouTube than anything else. I probably watch more YouTube than Netflix and Amazon and so yeah.
No, for sure. I feel like I haven't watched. I mean, just regular TV. I haven't watched regular TV for the longest time because YouTube mostly, Netflix, all that stuff. But mate, it's I remember those old school YouTube days where the 5 stars and video replies and
video replies.
yeah. There's some cool things they got rid of from back then. Some cool. I felt they never should have got rid of the video replies. Granted, I mean, apparently not many people use them. Okay, I understand that, but surely it can't be that much of a strain on YouTube to keep it for the people that do use it.
Yeah.
But well, it's gone now.
Yeah, channel art was the big one. I think I get why it's uniformed, but that's like they could have done much more with that and still made it easy to approach, kind of thing. But yeah, that's a long ass time ago now. I didn't even know how to use Photoshop back then.
You just get like the template so that you could style it well and have like things on the side and then at the top, and it all kind of looks like a big picture with your videos in the middle. And mate, YouTube. YouTube made a lot of good changes, but I feel like some of the things they've gotten rid of, some changes they made. Oh well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a good place to start wrapping up.
Sure,
Mr. Hippo.
Yeah, man.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we end today? Anything else you'd like to mention before we end today?
I'll just go run up the thing at StraightUpHippo on everything: Instagram, YouTube, all of that. Go run that up. And thanks for having me.
No, it's my pleasure, man. Appreciate you saying yes to this. Appreciate you spending a little time with me to talk about some things. And I'll drop some links in the description, whether you're watching and or listening. There'll be some links in the description. But yeah, definitely check out Straight Up Hippo's content for people who like cars, for people who like racing games, or you just like cool content. Check out Straight Up Hippo. But yeah, that's I think that's gonna be it for now. But yeah, Mr. Hippo, Mr. Straight Up Hippo, appreciate you coming through, bro. Till whenever, if ever.
Yeah, another 3 years, 4 years.
Just about.